Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable.
I had joint pain, and I couldn't move like I used to.
I needed relief.
I got Cosentix.
It helped me move better.
Cosentix secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentix. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTIX or Cosentix.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentix.
You know how we all have that one friend we go to with all our financial questions? Well, meet Experian, your BFF, as in big financial friend. Experian is going to be your go-to app when it comes to taking control of your finances. Experian could help you save, let you check your FICO score, and matches you with credit cards. Just download the Experian app today for free. Trust me, you need this big financial friend. Based on FICO Score 8 model, offers and approval not guaranteed. Terms apply. Offers not available in all states. See Experian.com for details.
Coming up on this episode of the Mario Rosenstock podcast.
But also just because of his physical heft, that he just, like, he has the entire room around his orbit. It's almost like he is the nucleus of the cell and everyone else is just an electron spinning around.
You do tend to sit forward like that, though, when you're wearing a nappy. So it depends, I think.
Okay. That's the voice of experience. I'll use that one on the news next March now. Trump, of course, is like Attenborough voice. He's sitting forward because he's wearing his diaper.
Yeah, because it kind of acts as a brace for your back.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can't sit back in it because you can't really get back into the nappy.
All of which is, of course, discussed at length in the book.
Exactly. That's chapter 8. The follow-through, it's called.
Gavan Reilly and I caught up for a great chat here on the Mario Rosenstock podcast recently, and he told me all about his new book, The Secret Life of Leinster House, what you really need to know about how the country runs. It's a book full of juicy anecdotes and stories about what life is like for our TDs and senators, and rare insights into how politics really works, from a genuine fly on the wall. Fascinating stuff that he has gathered over his many years as a political reporter. But after we had heard all about Irish politics and politicians, we turned our attention inevitably to US politics and politicians, and of course to the elephant in the room, his thoughts on Donald J. Trump. Gavan has travelled to the White House and been among the pack of journalists jostling in that scrum in the Oval Office not once but twice, the first term and the second term of Trump. He's been up close and personal with Donald Trump and has a lot to say about him, his politics, his personality, and even his demeanour. So somehow during the chat, we got on to the subject of pro wrestling and how Gavan is such a huge fan of it, along with some of the politicians in the Dáil, would you believe? And all of that talk of wrestling got me, of course, thinking about, yes, you know, Donald J. Trump. Here we go.
Well, actually, you've started something, so I'll finish. Wrestling. Very interesting. I've had this discussion with a number of people, and it's the endless or the unending issue of Trump and the labyrinthine sort of debates that go on around him. And one of the things I've fastened on is that he is a product of WWE, and that everything he does is WWE. Mm-hmm. His own personal...
I don't know whether you're aware that he is in fact a member of the WWE Hall of Fame.
Yes.
Partly because of his friendship with the original founder,
Vince McMahon. Yeah. And his participation in WWE left marks on him that he never left behind.
Yeah.
So his immediate casting of people, for example, of nicknames, Lion Ted Cruz, Crooked Hillary.
Steve Joe.
Yeah, these are all wrestling baddies, right? The simplicity of the populist sentiment.
Yeah.
Me good, him bad.
Yeah.
Me change. You mean you're going over to them?
Swamp Drain.
Oh my God! Yeah. Look what's happened. And then the performative showing of it all.
Yeah.
Look what he's done. Look, everybody. Look, I have unmasked the fake. Oh my God, it's the fake news.
And there's another aspect.
I mean, you could almost see a wrestler fake news Phil if he came in, you know?
But there's another, like, in a way you can, in the abstract, understand the attraction of a figure like that as well, because it does peel away the Sir Humphreys if you see them as that. If you think that Washington is a swamp and that it needs draining, and for some objectionable reason Trump didn't manage to do so the first time he was in there for 4 years running the swamp anyway, that he just portrays anyone who is opposed to him, irrespective of whether he's acting well beyond his lane or outside of the powers that he's got by law. Well, everyone is just some sort of obstacle of the public mood. The people elected me. I am the only nationwide office holder, and they elected me to achieve X and Y and Z, and I don't care whether it's illegal or not. This is what people want me to do, and so therefore I'm going to do it.
Yes, Michael Moore said it before he got elected in 2016. Michael Moore called it, and he said he's going to win, and everybody laughed at Michael Moore, and he said, I'm telling you, I'm a Democrat, he's going to win. And when people are sick of it and they want a Molotov cocktail thrown in there.
Yeah. People, I think, now these days don't care as much. Sorry, outsiders don't care as much about making sure you follow the proper procedure so much as you get the right outcomes.
Yes.
And I think that is maybe the difference between people who are now wedded to Washington culture or Democrats or the new populists versus the old school conservatives. Old school conservatives want to play the procedure to achieve the proper outcome. And new age conservatives, or the more reactionary far right figures that we tend to see now coming to the fore around the world, generally don't care so much about the process as achieving the right thing.
Yeah.
Which is why it's cutting through the sclerosis of civil service, or it's trying to get rid of the dead weight of judges or other politicians or other factions that are trying to stand in your way. And I think the broader public doesn't so much care about the CSPE of these things so much as outcomes.
Yeah.
If you are the person who is able to deliver 100,000 new homes, then it doesn't matter how you do it. If you make some deal with China where China comes over and does a belt and braces thing, or where they come over and build loads of houses, people don't care who's delivering it so much as the houses get done.
You were in the Oval Office on
3
both
months ago.
on both occasions that Trump was president.
Yeah.
And so you saw Trump 1.0 and 2.0, and you noticed a big difference.
Yeah, even Trump 1.1, like a year into the job, was very different to 1.0. Like I saw him when Enda Kenny was making his sort of valedictory visit in 2017, and Trump was only new in the job. I think Enda was possibly his only second overseas visitor. And he was visibly, although he sort of cut the usual braggadocious figure where he's like, I'm in charge, I'm the boss now, the buck stops with me and I'm the great fella. And ostensibly, you could tell that he was still a little unsure about, well, how does this actually work? That he hadn't quite done away with process and reformed it in his own image. He was still trying to follow procedure as it always was, and didn't know what that procedure was. In fact, this is a little bit of the theme of the book, the fake it till you make it kind of attitude. Ostensibly, or at least what I've been told, is that after all the media and all the extra extraneous advisors left the room and left just Trump and Kenny and a handful of advisors on either side, Trump just didn't know what was on the agenda. Like, what are we going to discuss, So he kind of looks around the room and says, okay, so this is Donald Trump, apprentice man, president of the United States, self-made billionaire, by his own account anyway, looking around the room going, so what can I do for you? Not really knowing how transactional this might be. And Enda Kenny, almost unnerved by this sort of sudden blank page, empty menu idea, says, well, okay, the first thing that traditionally Irish Taoiseach raised for decades was the 50,000 or so people who overstayed their visas and are now undocumented or illegal immigrants. They're doing their bit. They're trying to contribute to society. They pay their way. They pay their wages. They pay their taxes. And all they want is to be able to regularise things so that they could possibly come home and see the family and not be turning their back on their American lives when they do so. And Trump, I'm told, looks around the room and says, anyone got any issue with that?
I know. And
some advisor has to go, well, sir, you've just been elected on a platform of zero tolerance for illegal immigration, so I don't know if that's a runner.
Yeah.
And Trump goes, I'm sure we can figure it out. Yeah. And there's engagements in Capitol Hill a couple of hours later where Enda again says it in a public forum, and Trump looks over to Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, and says, I'm sure we can do something about that, can't we? So that's an example of how the public persona of Trump and the zero tolerance, I'm going to be the guy who cuts through all the sheaths of bureaucracy and gets stuff done. When it came down to the actual delivery, he was flailing for the first little while. And by comparison, then when you saw a year later, Leo Varadkar's the new guy, Trump has figured out the way of the world and how all this stuff works. And even by then, he is already then this commanding, totemic, oddly charismatic figure when you see him in the room, because he was perfectly at ease with his own surroundings then, and he's only become even more so in the time since.
Interesting that you say that he's physically very imposing. 6'4" and 224 pounds, which would make him the exact same physique as a linebacker or a wide receiver in the United States football. And
I'm sure
in the NFL,
his weight is 3 digits, but I don't know if those are the digits.
Yeah, and it's funny because since he sort of announced his weight and his height and everything, I've been looking at everybody that he actually turns up with publicly, and everybody seems to be at least the same size or slightly taller than him.
Yeah.
Which means everybody that Trump is meeting is 6'5".
It's huge, yeah.
It's absolutely incredible about all these big people he's meeting. Even Emmanuel Macron, who I believe is a bit of a dwarf, seems close in height to Trump.
Yeah, which is funny. And Macron, when you see Macron and Keir Starmer and Donald Tusk and all these people sort of in the line with them, and they all look that they're the same size. I mean, Trump is objectively, he's 6'2" or 3 or 4. Like he's a very big guy.
He's hunched.
But Keir Starmer is only about 5'4" or 5'5". Like I've met the man, and like he's actually deceptively small when you see him in real life.
Funny, yeah?
But the funny thing about Trump, though, like it's even when you go into the Oval Office, and often, of course, he's seated there beside his recipient, whichever Taoiseach it is, and he's sitting at the very edge of the chair, and he's doing that thing where he's doing the little diamond in his hands, and he's kind of looking around, and his elbows are slightly perched upon his knees, and he's hunched slightly forward, but in such a way as it either looks like it's a tiger that's ready to coil or coiled up and ready to strike at whatever moment he needs.
Yeah.
But also just because of his physical heft, that he just he has the entire room around his orbit. It's almost like he is the nucleus of the cell, and everyone else is just an electron spinning around.
You do tend to sit forward like that though when you're wearing a nappy. So it depends, I think.
Okay, it's the voice of experience.
It's the voice of anecdotal, empirical understanding.
I'll use that one on the news next March now. Trump, of course, is like Attenborough voice. He's sitting forward because he's wearing his diamond.
Yeah, because it kind of acts as a brace for your back.
Okay. Yeah.
So you can't sit back in it because you can't really get back into the nappy.
Good to know.
So you have to sit forward for the nappy.
So you've thought some degree about the mechanics.
I
of
think it allows.
adult diapers.
I think it allows slightly more dexterous control over your rectal area as well when you sit forward, whereas you kind of you lose the kind of, you get relaxed when you sit back.
Yeah,
and dangerous.
All of which is, of course, discussed at length in the book.
Exactly. That's chapter 8. The follow through, it's called.
A point about Trump, which I actually neglected to make when we were discussing his sort of general operating mode, is that I know it's now well established at this stage that he does this thing called flooding the zone, where he basically sort of
Steve Bannon,
lights 10 different fires at once and then distracts you with how many you put out. He also, from a very basic, it's more of an almost a 1980s media management style. Everything for Trump is mediated through television. How something looks on TV is exactly how it is.
He said it on TV.
Yeah.
He said it during the Zelensky. He said, this will make great TV.
Yeah. Like that was like a little peek inside the sawing him up and having a look at the machinery inside. That's exactly his view of things. But he also is so clever as to know that, and particularly when you see it in contrast to how Biden used to act. Biden would never do formal set piece press conferences, and in fact even stuff like in the Oval Office, like with Ramaphosa last week or with Zelensky in February or March, and all those things now, Trump entertains the media. The meeting almost becomes a press conference. Micheál Martin had him for an hour in March, and Micheál Martin was maybe biting his tongue for some of what happened in front of the cameras, thinking that an actual meeting will follow where the press have gone.
That was the meeting.
But it was scheduled for 60 minutes and the media was 50 minutes. There was no time to have a meeting afterwards. So that became the whole meeting. But Trump not only floods the zone by just doing different initiatives all at once, but he is so open to the media, and by consequence of his position so influential in the world, that all he has to do is just simply keep producing content, and there isn't space for his opponents. So we have this perception that the Democrats are floundering, and yes, to a certain extent they are, that we're trying to figure out, the Democrats are trying to figure out, can they learn the lesson that people don't care about process so much as outcomes, these little things. One reason why we perceive the Democrats as being mute is because they're just not getting airtime. Correct. Yes, they can be circulated on social media and they can try and have their counterpoints and their rebuttals and whatnot, but they're not seen on television, because by the time CNN or Fox or Newsmax or anyone else has finished dissecting the first thing that he said, here he is signing another executive order. Oh, by the way, he'll take questions. And that is another 4 or 6 hours bought in the media cycle. He just doesn't leave space.
Correct.
Anyone
That's
else.
astute.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just, he's flooding the zone and hogging the parking space.
And not necessarily even with very savvy or very meditated insights. Often it's just gut reaction. Oh, sir, what do you think about this? My instinct is that that's not great. So he'll say a thing which sounds very scathing, and that sets off the world going as it is. And he often uses a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Yeah, one of the things that I find, you as a journalist, I would ask you this question. Why isn't anybody fact checking him live anymore? So he is now. So he now says, as you know, the was rigged, and they just nod. So they don't do the thing anymore. Going, hang on, everybody says it's not rigged. You were 60 judges.
Yeah,
it's not rigged. They don't fact check him live anymore.
I hadn't noticed that.
Well, it's true.
I had I have no doubt that it's true. I just hadn't taken it in. I might surmise that
he's worn them down.
He has worn them down, and also to a degree, doesn't winning legitimately in 2024 make the question of whether he actually won in 2020 a little bit mute or not. So they've just kind of given up trying to mitigate that. And the history is written by the winner.
No, you're wrong.
Anyway.
Because you're right about the idea that it could be moot.
Yeah.
But you're wrong.
Even though it objectively is not.
No, but you're wrong because he then, the next sentence later, lies absolutely abjectly about something that is in the present. So he goes, as you know, eggs are down.
Yeah, which they're not.
And they're not.
Yeah.
Or as you know, gasoline is down to 189. It's not.
Is it because there's so many of them? Is it that he is so immediately available to the media that even if you consider that the vast majority of what he says is untruthful, that they themselves don't have the bandwidth to continue to fact check? Or maybe because
I think so.
We live in such delicate, febrile times that to spend airtime between Trump appearances fact checking what he said and not wargaming out the consequence of his comments is maybe it sort of feels like, well, actually, if he's decided that he's going to increase European tariffs to 50% from the 1st of June, we haven't time to think about whether the EU was actually set up to screw America on trade, which it patently wasn't. Yeah. It was set up to pool German steel resources so they couldn't declare war on the rest
and to keep peace.
And to keep peace, which is two sides of the same coin.
Germany and France had been at war for 400 years.
So if you pool their steel and coal resources, they just don't have the means by which to wage war against each other. Yeah. That's the European Union. Yeah. It evolved from that. But Trump says, it exists to screw America on trade. Well, it's not the reason why it exists. But anyway, you haven't time to or it's not really worth your while trying to fact check him on that and to lecture your viewers and say, actually, that's not true. Because you have to you talk about the bigger consequence, which is, European tariffs are now going to cost, or European product will cost so much more from 3 weeks' time. How do
they don't have the time?
Yeah.
They're worn
down. You have to pick and choose the things you talk about.
No, everything you say there was particularly the just hogging the zone there was actually a good one.
It's just as someone who works in TV and who is in a newsroom,
he dominates the news cycle,
with different TV.
He fills it with content, as you said.
He just provides so much content.
He's a content provider,
and in he is a content.
I'm a content creator, and nobody creates content like me.
Everyone likes and subscribes, and that's what he does. But he is relatively cheap content in that any news provider anywhere in the world will always know that the Trump machine will produce stuff, but he just does it so regularly. Like the comparison to Biden might talk for 30 seconds as he's climbing on the helicopter on a Friday, and that might be the entirety that you hear from the White House for a weekend. Trump is, he'll show up at this thing and he's doing this executive announcement, and then one of his cabinet secretaries will just show up in the briefing room, or another one will show up in the tarmac at what they call Pebble Beach, where all the networks have their TV perches outside the White House. They just produce so much stuff that when on earth would you ever have time to hear the countervailing view from the party that is not in government?
Yeah, because somebody said it years ago, I knew it was true, but I knew none of us would ever do it. And he said, do you know how you beat him? You ignore him.
And how do you ignore the most consequential figure on the planet?
Exactly. But that would be the way.
Yeah.
Because you just turn off his life support, his oxygen.
Which in a way is what happened for early 2021 after January the 6th happened, and he was still the serving president, but he got banned from Facebook and Twitter as it then was.
Correct.
That if he was just deplatformed, and unless you made a point of going out of your way to download Truth Social, you didn't hear from him.
And nobody downloaded
for the first
Truth
half
Social.
of 2021.
And nobody downloaded Truth Social.
Yeah.
It was Kevin McCarthy who'd rehabilitated him by doing that photograph.
So you have him who's just completely deplatformed for 2 years, and the world kept turning. And we dealt with other things, and no one was hearing from him. Until such time as he then expresses an interest and go, well, the democratic process has to run its course. You have to hear him out again. You have to put him on TV. Kevin McCarthy and all the other different appearances that he did, and his dalliance with Live Golf and suddenly becoming a golf titan or a golf mogul, housing this new breakaway tour and his allegiances with Saudi Arabia and all these other things. But he was silenced and deplatformed for 2 years, and it kind of seemed like the problems had gone away.
Isn't it amazing that the first place he went to visit pretty much on both his presidencies was Saudi Arabia? Twice.
It was almost always previously the UK, wasn't it? That any new president, basically the first visit would always be a special relationship.
To identify, to encapsulate the special relationship.
Yeah. That
Yeah.
Atlanticism still survives no matter
Yeah.
who the personnel is.
And now it was Saudi Arabia when he waved the sword around
Yes.
the first time. And now
I didn't know a purple carpet was a thing, actually, until I saw it.
Yeah, it's Uber. It's the Uber. It's
Yeah.
like
Red.
I want purple.
Let us show you what's better than red.
And you know that he'd love that, don't you?
Oh,
Purple.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's only for me.
Yeah. It's like, there's a secret 8-star hotel in the world. And only I own it.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's it. And my thanks to Gavan Reilly for coming in and sharing his time and having such an interesting conversation with me about all things Irish politics and even Trump himself. Go buy the book. It's called The Secret Life of Leinster House. It's flying off the shelves. It's been number 1 for a couple of weeks. Gavan's done a great job. If you didn't hear part 1 of our chat, make sure to listen back. Just scroll back through a couple of episodes and hear the first part of my chat with Gavan. My thanks, as always, to Deluxe Bathrooms. Their Summer Sizzler sale is now on. It ends on June 29th, and you can get, would you believe, 70% off, up to 70% off, some great bathroom items. If you're looking for more Trump talk, go on, you know you are. You think you're not, but you are. Then check out both parts of my chat with Fintan O'Toole, part 1 and part 2. They're my latest episodes. See you, same time, next week.
Psoriatic arthritis symptoms can be unpredictable.
I had joint pain, and I couldn't move like I used to.
I needed relief.
I got Cosentix.
It helped me move better.
Cosentyx secukinumab is prescribed for people 2 years of age and older with active psoriatic arthritis. Don't use if you're allergic to Cosentyx. Before starting, get checked for tuberculosis. An increased risk of infections and lowered ability to fight them may occur, like tuberculosis or other serious bacterial, fungal, or viral infections. Some were fatal. Tell your doctor if you have an infection or symptoms like fevers, sweats, chills, muscle aches, or cough, had a vaccine or plan to, or if inflammatory bowel disease symptoms develop or worsen. Serious allergic reactions and severe eczema-like skin reactions may occur. Learn more at 1-844-COSENTYX or Cosentyx.com.
Ask your rheumatologist about Cosentyx.